and welcome to AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling Smiles. You're either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast apps on a Thursday. We also have the video episodes that come out on Mondays. Also, don't forget, Upper Deck, this amazing, amazing company, is our title sponsor. You can collect your favorite wrestlers in the 2024 Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. You can collect unwrapped autograph memorabilia, premium tech inserts. I've got a couple autograph cards in this pack right here. Visit upperdeck.com today.
I pulled this Max Caster card,
Really?
by the way. Yeah, and I just started thinking a lot about how much I am a huge fan.
I am loving what he's doing right now.
Yeah. I don't know if he is, but I love it. It's great. And it genuinely, so when I pulled this card, I was like, you know what? It just made me so happy because I think the open challenges to face the best wrestler in the world have been so good. Eventually the crowd's going to get the chant, but not today.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great.
It's freaking awesome. I love, because it's one of those, like, you don't know who's going to come out, but they're like actually like really awesome like names at our company. Like he had a match with Jay White. He had a match with Takeshita. He had a match with Brody King. Like all of these have been incredible. And I just love like, oh man, it's one of the things we're going to talk about today. Like just being used to and like willing to do anything, right?
Yes.
Like that's where opportunity comes from. That's, I think, what opens doors for people. And a lot of people in wrestling just don't realize that if you're willing to kind of maybe break the mold or do something different, like cool opportunities happen. So speaking of which, Will, who is our guest today?
Aubrey, we are joined by the one and only Viva Van. Viva Van, welcome to AEW Unrestricted. And honestly, welcome to AEW because if I'm not mistaken, you officially signed with AEW on January 1st.
Hi, yes, I did. And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So tell me about that. What did that mean to you? How did you celebrate? Who was the first person you told?
First person I told was my boyfriend and then my family. So I celebrated with my boyfriend and my family. What it means to me, the world, because I've been training wrestling for 8 years, working for 7, and it just felt like all the hard work finally paid off.
It was one of those things where I think your first match was like back in the summer of 2021. So it's just one of those things where I feel like you put in the work and you're consistently there. And like every time you're there, we see you. And it's just that question of like, okay, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And then to see you being like super successful in CMLL and in New Japan and in all these other places, I'm just like, how does she not work here yet? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, for a few years, I was like, man, what do I got to do? I mean, I feel like I'm on the same show with everybody, except, I just don't have a contract yet. But I kept telling myself that, not yet. And I think that's what kept me going.
I think that's the big thing, right? It's a matter of like, you don't know when the opportunity is going to happen, but it's like the same thing in corporate, right? Like you have to be doing the job before people actually recognize you for doing the job. And then it's like, oh no, okay, now we'll like actually pay you and whatnot and do all these things.
Yeah.
Not that you weren't getting paid, but now it's like, now you've got like that contract money. So
yeah.
Well, let's talk about that though, that time period, because again, you worked dark for quite some time. You've been, involved in TV, you've worked Ring of Honor. There's so much you've done in the AEW circle up until this point. And so it's not as if you weren't coming to work with us. It's not like we weren't seeing you, as Aubrey just said. But at the same time, talk a little bit about that kind of build-up process, getting to know the girls in the locker room, things to that effect.
Yeah, a lot of the girls I've known, like even way before AEW, like we've all worked with each other in the indies. So I think that's what helped a lot. And just like building friendships throughout the years, like a lot of the girls would tell me the same thing that Aubrey would tell me, like, I don't know why you're not here yet. I don't know how you're not officially here yet. And I would just say, I don't know, but I think one of the funniest things was when I had just had a match. It was me, Willow versus Juvia. Me, like a triple threat for the female women's world title. And the very next week, I did Comic-Con as a dinosaur with AEW and like I forgot the Cartoon Network.
The Adult Swim's. The
Adult Swim, there you go.
Yep.
There you go. And then I think that was when Tony was like, that's when Tony was like, "Oh, she's willing to like put in the work."
You know, yeah, as having spoken to Tony at that time period, you are like it's right on the money for how that came about. Like that is fairly accurate.
It's one of
Not
those
to
things
spoil
where, like,
who was inside the costumes, by the way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
right. I know a couple people that were also in the costumes that are like people that are relatively seen on the indies
Yeah.
or as like extras at AEW. And I'm like, if people only knew who this like frog guy was, because it's like someone
Oh
I've known for a long
yeah.
time.
It's so
like
funny. Yeah.
me and him go way back. It's
Yeah.
really funny because I feel like that's part of like what I think the people who are the best in wrestling are the people who are willing to commit and do anything. It's the like yes and. Like for instance, I was just on pay-per-view and the women got the first 5-star match ever in America. Yet tonight I'm at an indie reffing a dude who's in a monkey costume. So it's kind of one of
Yeah.
those like you have to be willing to do all of it, but to be
Yeah.
recognized and to be on board with it, it's one of those things where like your peers just respect you that much more. So it's really really great to finally like have you here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Of course, of course. One of the things I like about you specifically is that you have such an interesting aesthetic. Like you look very different than anyone else, and it helps you stand out. Your hair, your gear, your costume. Like recently, I worked with you in ROH match. It was you and La Catalina. And as soon as you come through the tunnel, Madison, who's on headset, is like, "Ooh, look at that jacket." I'm like, "Right? Oh my God, she's killing
Oh.
it." So I am curious, like, where does all of this come from? Like, what's the impetus for choosing your aesthetic, where you went that direction? Do you make your own gear? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
I do not make my own gear, but I do have like a lot of ideas where I draw them out or I try to explain to my gear maker as best as possible. But a lot of my inspirations probably from, I want to say Judas Priest, the band Rob
Okay.
Halford.
Okay, I can see that.
And, I try to get my stuff like, I'm very inspired by like, popular artists like Rihanna or Meg Thee Stallion or even like Lisa from Blackpink. So I just get a little bit from everything and I just put it together. But usually my main inspiration is probably Rob Halford from Judas Priest.
wow, that's incredible. Like, so specifically, what elements did you take? Like thinking about Judas Priest, what elements inspired you the most there?
Oh, it's heavy metal, I always have the flashy jackets. Like usually when I first started, I had a lot of leather jackets with the spikes, but it got really heavy. But as I like evolved and I felt like I kept growing, I wanted more rhinestones, more shimmy, like shimmy tassels and stuff like that. Even added the feathers to it too. It just always keeps evolving. So I try to upgrade it.
I always commend people that have super heavy ring jackets because when you think about the fact that it's like, okay, you got to travel with that now. Like when it becomes a part of you, it's like, okay, well, and you can't check it because if you check your luggage, you're going to lose it. So you got to keep the gear on you. And it's like, whew, okay, like I got to bring a striped shirt and some pants. Yeah, right? The moment you don't
losing my luggage.
right? The moment you check it, that's when you lose it. It's like, so you just have to like, anytime I'm at the airport and someone's like, "Do you want to check your carry-on?" I'm like, my whole life is in this bag. Like, absolutely not. Don't touch it. Oh my God.
So getting back to the locker room a little bit, and you've gotten to face some of the top names in the AEW locker room. You've actually gotten to face some of our women's champions and former women's world champions. Do you have a dream opponent when you look across the locker room as it exists right now?
Let me see who I haven't wrestled yet. I definitely want to wrestle Jamie Hayter.
Who doesn't?
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like she's incredible. I've been watching her stuff for years, and she's someone that I definitely would be a dream opponent. And Mercedes Monet, of course.
Will, take notes.
Yeah. I feel like I've wrestled almost everyone in that locker room before I got signed. So I'm trying to think, like, who haven't I wrestled?
Well,
So those
but
are the
the
top
funny
two
thing is
for sure.
the stage changes. I talk to a lot of people who have their opponents that they've got to wrestle on the indies, got to wrestle even in enhancements, things along those lines. But it's a whole
Yes.
different ball game when you're suddenly a part of the roster. When you're suddenly
Yeah.
when you get to have a little bit more competitive of a performance with them. When it's
Yeah.
when the time changes. Time is the
Mhm.
biggest factor there, right? And
TV
Yeah.
suddenly
time,
when those minutes get added on and it's like, for example, you got to face Chris Statlander on Dark, but it's like,
Yes.
what does a match with Chris Statlander look like today?
That is true. I would love to work Chris again. She's incredible. And she's my first match in AEW, so I'll never forget
Hmm.
that.
right? It's one of those like fun little peek behind the curtain. We
Yeah.
were that same ROH match that we did. Like I'm looking at the run sheet of it, and I'm like, oh, like Viva needs an entrance and a Tron and
I remember
music,
that day.
right? No, it was
Yeah.
literally like peel back the curtain line. It was literally like 2 days ago. But I'm just like talking to Mikey and Topher. I'm like, no, we need to fix this. And they're like, what? I was like, no, she works here now. Oh, snap. And they were just like hustling to like get this
Yeah.
fixed.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I didn't know that
It's a big
happened.
change.
Right? It's a big change. But even then, it's like that's an
Yeah.
extra minute, potentially minute plus of TV time where you get to connect with the audience and they get to see a little bit more of you. And it's like now instead of just walking out with the ref and being there, it's like now we get to see who Viva is the moment you come through the
Yeah.
tunnel, which is really
I-
exciting. It's like,
Yeah, I remember we're doing extra work and I would be like, I don't know when I'll ever get my entrance moment, but when I do, I just need like at least 30 seconds because like I show who I am in my entrance. I feel like I give my all in it. It's my baby. And I'm like, I just need like a little bit of that. And when
Ta-
it
ta-
finally happened,
Take 45 to 60. And
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, no one's going to say anything if it's above. I mean, if it's below 60, unless you
Yeah.
were specifically told, hey, take 45. But like,
Yeah.
if you're allotted 60, take the 60
Take the
because
60.
that is 60
Definitely.
seconds that you have a chance to let the audience know exactly who you are and get them accustomed to your music. Like that's a big thing too. Is
Yeah.
you want people to be able to recognize your theme. Take the full 60 seconds.
yeah.
yeah, definitely
30.
will now. 30 was when I was like, I just need an entrance when I didn't get one
Right.
yet. So I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I just need a little bit. Give me a little bit. But now definitely will be like taking the full 60.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of taking the time, we got to go take a quick break here at AEW Unrestricted, but more with Viva Van coming up here. Stay tuned. AEW Unrestricted, Aubrey and Will talking to one of AEW's newest signees, Viva Van. You've seen her on AEW programming for years, and it's like she's finally here with us as one of us. It's very super exciting. But you've had a very like monumentous career, and you've done crazy stuff even outside of AEW. Like I touched on CMLL, New Japan, all these sort of things. But like your involvement with Vietnam Pro Wrestling, like how did you become involved with them?
So this is when I first started wrestling, and I've been a fan of Japanese wrestling since the beginning, but I realized I wondered, like, are there any other Vietnamese wrestlers? So I Googled Vietnamese pro wrestling and I found Vietnam Pro Wrestling and I found their documentary and I reached out to them looking for an opportunity to work there. But they told me, yeah, we would love to have you, but the only thing is we don't have a wrestling ring. And they would only wrestle on like a 2-inch mat. So from there, I felt like, oh, why don't you guys have a wrestling ring? They said, one, pro wrestling is so new in Vietnam, and two, we can't afford it.
Mhm.
So right there, I felt like it was my calling. Like I have to help them. So that's when I started a GoFundMe page, raised money for them to get a ring. It took about a month, but we finally did it back in 2020. And so that's how I got involved in that.
That's crazy.
God.
Like to think about the fact that you made that big of a difference simply off of a Google search like that. That's incredible. And the fact that you were able to secure it, you were able to get the ring. That I think is one of those things that is almost fate in so many different ways.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And how to? So you ended up getting the ring for them, and obviously that put them. That adds such a. That puts them on such a different level as far as where they were, even just 5 minutes before you Googled them, right? And and so talk about what your involvement ended up becoming with them from there.
From there, I would just help them, like, I just help promote them whenever I can. And I got to wrestle there once versus Sumi Sakai. So that was really cool. We were the first women's match to ever main event in Vietnam. So that was
Hell
Wow.
yeah.
history.
Wow, in a whole country. Like
Yeah.
like first women's match main event in Vietnam, period. Like
Yeah.
that's like hang your hat up on that one. That's really freaking cool. Um
And with Sumi Sakai of all people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sumi Sakai. She
That's
was very
insane.
hands-on at the beginning with helping me spread the word about VPW. Like she helped me with the GoFundMe as well. And she also would sell merch and whatever she would make off of merch, she would help donate it to the cause.
That's awesome. Man, like pro wrestling's the best, man. Like we all look out for each other. We're trying to like create opportunities for other people. Like karma is alive and well in pro wrestling. Like it's you're doing all this good stuff for other people and now all these good things are coming to you. Like it pays off. I'm so happy. I first learned about VPW from actually Chris Jericho because I know there's like a documentary involved with it and that was like
Yeah.
Chris is involved. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it kind of it's kind of crazy how it all happened. So had done my first Japan tour with TJPW, and then the same week I got to go to VPW, and I had no idea that Chris Jericho was and his crew were flying there the same week to VPW and doing the documentary. So that was all a surprise to me. My first time at VPW and getting to be in a documentary, being part of history, is just so surreal.
Wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
hmm
And
So
VPW ended up inducting you into their Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, they
oh my
did.
God.
The burying the lead there, but because that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
Talk about that honor a bit.
Yeah, that was very like, touching for me. To me, I did it out of just wanting them to have a ring so that they can have and follow their dream. Like I didn't think about myself. I didn't think that that meant anything. I just saw that they had a dream and that they were chasing it. And to me, I just am so happy that they can finally just follow their dreams and for them to induct me into the Hall of Fame. That I don't know. That just makes me really happy and I'm happy to have done something to help them.
That's freaking great. And I know that like you've been a strong advocate for Vietnamese representation in wrestling. Like when we
hmm
did the Grand Prix down in CMLL, like you were the representative from Vietnam. So how important is it to you to be able to represent your heritage on a main stage?
Very important because like I mentioned, pro wrestling is so new in Vietnam. I don't know if it could be the culture or anything like that where women aren't allowed to wrestle in Vietnam or something like that. So I'm hoping to change that. And maybe it will inspire more girls to join VPW or just more Vietnamese wrestlers out there. I just want to make sure that there's a lot more room for people like me in the industry.
I mean, we've seen representation work, right? When people see people that look like them on TV, it makes them go,
hmm
"Oh, I could do that." Like, why is
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no limitation? Like, so of
yeah.
course, hell yeah. So, like, yes, you were doing the thing. Good job.
So we talked about you working CMLL and working in AEW, Ring of Honor, and Tokyo Joshi Pro, getting to do a tour of Japan. But let's take it back to the beginning. Let's take it back to the roots of what inspired Viva Van to even take the step into becoming a professional wrestler. What was your experience like with wrestling beforehand?
So I've always been a fan of wrestling since I was a kid, but I got into it through the PlayStation WrestleMania arcade game. And
What?
yeah, that's how I got into wrestling. I
Wait,
didn't know
wait,
there were,
like the old 2D like
yeah,
WrestleMania the arcade game with like Doink the Clown shooting out the fireballs, like that one.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's how I
Incredible.
got into wrestling. I didn't know they were real people until like I went to school and my friends like, yeah, you can watch these people on TV. I was like, oh shoot. So that's how I got into it. And I've always had a secret passion to be a pro wrestler. But growing up Vietnamese, it's kind of hard to tell my mom, hey, I want to be a pro wrestler. So
Right.
in the middle of college, I was really unhappy. Like I was majoring in accounting at the time and I just remember Googling the pro wrestling schools near me and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a fortune to join. I can't afford it. And I remember driving home from school one day and I was just praying. I was like, please, like, I don't know how I'm going to get this money, but I need this money to start pro wrestling training on Monday. I just really need it. And a car hit me from behind right after the trade. It was a
Oh
fender bender.
no.
It was
No way.
yeah. So I got in a car accident and then we pulled over to the side. I'm like, great, this is just what I needed right now. But then the guy was like, look, I know I'm at fault. I don't want to get insurance involved. Here's a check for 1,500. And that was exactly the amount. And I looked at the scuff on my car and I'm like, you know what? This will come off. And I started pro wrestling training on Monday.
Oh my
That following
God.
Monday.
This this is probably the coolest like how you got into wrestling story ever. I'm very sorry you were in a car accident. Like, and I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad it was just a scratch, but like, oh my God. Like, wasn't I just talking about karma and like stars aligning and all that shit? Like, oh my God.
But sometimes when you ask for something, if you're not specific with it, it'll come in like, I guess, a blessing in disguise in a way. But
Right?
yeah.
Oh my God.
But I got the amount that I needed, like right then and there. It's so
Oh
crazy.
my
If,
God.
you know,
And so, where did you end up heading for training?
I started at Santino Bros Pro Wrestling in LA.
Mhm,
I
all right.
love Santino
Yeah.
Bros. There's so many good people that
Yeah.
come out of there.
Yeah, there are.
So train at Santino Bros.
Uh-huh.
When did you sort of start to make your entrance into the indies? And were you still the same kind of like character and aesthetic you are now, or was that sort of something you grew into over time?
Um, Half of the things that I do in my entrance is actually something that I've done since the beginning.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, like I said, like over time I just keep adding to it and it does evolve, but a lot of it did like still remains from the beginning. And I think
Hell yeah.
I trained there for about a year and a half and I made my debut in 2018.
What
Damn.
was that year of training like?
Oh, it was really hard. The conditioning, I thought I was in shape because I worked out before pro wrestling, but in-ring cardio is a whole nother beast, and I don't think anything can ever prepare you for
No, that is,
that.
I think that is universally the thing that everyone agrees in wrestling is that there's no way to like replicate in-ring cardio in the gym. Like you just
Yeah,
have to be doing stuff in the ring in order to understand how your body actually needs to work through this, like how to pace it, how to be able to like pick somebody up above your head and then suddenly run a comeback and all of these things. And it's like, yeah, and also like don't die.
yeah.
And so, that first time you were actually able to like step in the ring and have a match, how I guess thinking about that person who played the WrestleMania arcade
Oh,
game
yeah.
back in the day and seeing that officially come to life for you, what was that transformation like?
So to me, like I said, as soon as I started, I was like, man, this is really tough, but I really want to keep doing it. Like, I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how much it hurts or how tired I am. I feel like I'm meant to do this. It's something I'm meant to do.
Damn. Oh man, this is such a great conversation. I was not expecting it to take all of the twists and turns it have, and I'm so excited to talk more with Viva. We're going to take another quick break, and then when we come back, more about Viva's background in wrestling coming up here on AEW Unrestricted.
AEW Unrestricted. It's Aubrey and Will. We're talking with Viva Van, talking about car accidents leading to exactly what you needed to get into the world of professional wrestling. But also, it isn't just wrestling for you, right? Because you're an all-around performer.
Mhm.
And honestly, looking at my notes here, one of the things that kind of popped me was the fact that, like, if you talk to anybody in AEW, you could pick any 5 random people. They're all fans. You'll probably at least find 3 out of 5 people in AEW are fans of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. And so I kind of want to
that show.
Me either. It's that's but again, that's how I know that at least 3 out of 5 people, I'm like, then me and Aubrey would be the other 2. But I do have to ask, how did you get involved with I Think You Should Leave, and what was the audition process like?
Oh, that I just got hit up by the booker for Suburban Fight, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indie booker, and he, I
Right.
guess, had connections to this show. He's like, hey, we need wrestlers. Would you like to join? And I said, yeah, I'm down. So that's how I got in. There was no audition process or anything. The show just needed pro wrestlers, and I happen to live in SoCal.
Oh my God. That's so great. Because I know there's a lot of people that ended up in that. Like Nemeth was there. I think friggin' Ty
Yeah,
Valkyrie was there. Like
Kaya was there.
I was
Yeah.
reading the credits and I'm like, this is like the who's who of LA professional wrestling on this show. Oh my God. This is freaking
Yeah.
great.
It was a lot of fun, and we got to like get all glammed up like 80s. They crimped my hair. My hair was like really big. I've never
Oh
seen my hair
buddy.
that big before in my life.
Oh
That's
buddy.
cool.
That wasn't your only foray into acting. I think you were involved in one of the seasons of Glow during the pandemic.
Yeah, I was, and I'm so sad that that season got canceled
I
because I had
know.
so many cool outfits for my shots and my scenes. I was so sad.
I
But yeah,
know.
I got to be a part of that, and that was really incredible.
So how did that come together? Was it kind of a similar deal, or did you have to audition for this one?
For this one, I just got a text message from Chavo Guerrero out of nowhere. I was like, how the hell did Chavo get my number? But it
Right?
was recommended from another wrestler. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's how I got in. No audition required, just a text from Chavo Guerrero one morning.
That's the most indie wrestling, like how I got on a TV show story I've ever heard. Like, oh yeah, I just got a text from somebody. Like that's how bookings work in wrestling.
Yeah,
And for it
that
to
is.
translate like elsewhere, like that's hilarious.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
yeah, and like random wrestlers just getting your number. It's like everyone just shares numbers with each other constantly. It's like, wait, is this person
Hmm.
actually who they say they are? And then you're side texting like three other people, like, hey, is this
Yeah,
so and so?
to
Like,
make sure I'm not
just like,
getting
hey, I
ripped.
just want to make sure, like, hey, what's going on here?
No one's pranking me, right?
Right. Can you talk a little bit more about Glow? Like, what was your character going to be? Since it never
Uh,
aired, let's get this hot scoop.
So Glow is gonna start having a backstory about indie wrestlers, indie women. So I was part of the indie women touring.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I really
And
like that.
Taya was the leader of our group, you know?
Holy crap. Oh my God. I had
Yeah.
no idea Taya was in it either. Wow.
Yeah.
So when they
Hmm.
canceled the show, did you get to keep any of the gear or was that like off in a
No.
warehouse somewhere?
It's probably
Uh,
off in a warehouse somewhere, but man,
damn it.
there's so many cool outfits that we were supposed to wear.
Damn. Damn.
And you guys only got to film the one episode?
Just the first day, yeah. Just one day.
Wow. Damn. It's one of those like coulda, woulda, shoulda. Would have been great.
It's crazy because we're hitting all of these pandemic milestones, right? Because it's been 5 years. And so every day I keep coming across something different for, 5 years ago today, this happened. And 5 years ago today, this happened. And
Oh yeah.
I just came across the 5 years ago, Glow production was shut down. And
Hmm.
it's just kind of crazy that, again, that was such a popular show, but just thinking about what was happening at that period in the pandemic where pretty much if a show couldn't resume or couldn't fulfill its contractual obligations, then all of a sudden funding was gone like that. And so many productions were just done. And to know that Glow didn't get to finish telling its story and you were going to be a part of that story is
Boo.
is
Hmm.
tragic.
Right.
Yeah.
So sad.
Maybe Hollywood some other day.
Right. Am I correct in saying that you have a performing arts background?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So talk about that a little bit. Like singing, dancing, like what's a little bit more beyond the wrestling side of Viva Van?
So when I was, I want to say 13 and throughout high school, I went to performing arts school in LA. I went to one called Pop Academy, and then there was one called Talent Boot Camp. And at that time, I did R&B, and I was a hip hop dancer. But throughout high school, I started changing, and I had a lot of built up rage inside of me, and I eventually became a death metal vocalist. And I did that for a while.
That is like such a 180. That's like
Yeah.
that's not even like a gradual jump in a certain direction. That's like, I don't know. To me, it's I'm just trying to think of any R&B artist that can go from R&B to metal, and there's nobody I could picture
Will,
doing
could
even.
you Could you imagine your wonderful, amazing Mariah Carey just saying, you know what, today?
Like she did. It's funny because in her book she talks about the fact that she did record a secret rock album that eventually everybody found on the internet. But she didn't go full metal. And knowing that you went metal is crazy. I need to know more about this path.
So I don't know if you guys know that cartoon or that anime called Agresco on Netflix. No. So she's this cat that has a corporate job, and she's a very nice girl, but when she just keeps getting pushed to her limit, she goes do metal karaoke and she turns into this crazy death metal vocalist, right? I felt like that was me in high school because I was bullied.
Yeah.
I was bullied in high school. So that kind of just turned me into a bad girl one day. And
Oh my God.
that's how that came about.
So now, like, everything sort of starts to make sense. Like, I'm like, okay, Judas Priest for the costume, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to get like the picture a little bit more, like the whole kit and caboodle. So, like, do you have aspirations to keep doing like the singing and the performing stuff outside of wrestling, or is it just sort of like you're taking life as it is, and then as the opportunities come out? Because like clearly you've got a number of opportunities that come across, and it's like, you know, whatever, you'll get hit by a car one day, and all of a sudden you're doing something else. So it's like, so like, is this part of the plan, or are you just kind of like taking it as you go?
I mean, I've tried to like keep my band going, but it's really hard to do that with wrestling. As you know, like our schedule is really crazy and hectic.
Right.
So I think that was the reason why I kind of stopped my music and just focused on wrestling because it's just easier to focus on one person, whereas in a band, you have to worry about four other people.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just taking it as I go. Like I would love to do music again. I would love to do acting again one day, but wrestling is my number one.
Have you considered the Chris Jericho route of
You could do both.
Yeah.
doing both, bringing it together?
Yeah.
You
I
just
could,
conveniently
right?
have to you just conveniently have to make sure that you're off TV when you're touring. So it's one of those like,
That's kind of
Ozzy's
hard,
going on
but I'll
tour. I
figure-
wonder when this storyline is ending.
Oh shoot. Yeah, you know what? One day I will reach that level one day.
I'm not gonna like tell. I'm just gonna put it out there that if you wanted to perform on the Jericho Cruise, I'm sure you could tell Chris, and then he'd let it happen. So because he's always looking for cool and interesting things. So just put that out there.
And you did do the
Thank
cruise.
you.
You've done the cruise. Yeah.
Yes,
So-
I did.
You know, who knows?
Maybe
It could all come
Yeah.
together for you.
the
Oh
more
my
you
gosh,
offer.
that is so cool. Yes, okay.
Well, as we get close to wrapping here, I wanted to ask a little bit about Hellbent Glam.
So Hellbent Glam, so earlier I mentioned I was going to college for accounting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did still stay in school and I did graduate because my mom told me you need to
Good.
graduate, and after you graduate, you can do whatever you wanted.
You need a backup plan.
I was miserable in accounting, so I switched over to marketing, and I had graduated in 2020. And
Okay.
at that time, wrestling completely shut down in the West Coast. Couldn't do anything. And I was like, what do I do with myself? I just graduated college. I can't wrestle. Well, I like makeup, and I learned how to start a business in school. So that's how I started Hellbent Glam.
Damn. So where can people buy Hellbent Glam, your makeup
As
line?
of right now, I don't have anything for sale with makeup because wrestling has taken over my life.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's
so
just
that was
add
just a
that to the
test
list.
for me. Yeah. Maybe I'll restart Hellbent Glam again, but it was just something to keep me busy during the pandemic.
That's awesome. Oh my God. It's like, okay, so singer, marketing person, makeup designer, friggin' like you do it all. And I'm so happy that we had you here today because it was one of those things that like I already appreciated you and I love every opportunity I get to work with you. But now I'm just like, holy shit, this girl is like even more than I thought she was. Like, that's so freaking cool. And I'm so happy you're finally a part of the AEW family officially.
Thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of the AEW family. And another member of the AEW family is Upper Deck, because they are a sponsor here on AEW Unrestricted. And collect your favorite wrestlers in 2024, Upper Deck AEW, and start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autograph memorabilia and premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more, and you can listen to and follow this podcast, AEW Unrestricted, at AEW Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And check out the video episodes on our YouTube channel at AEW Unrestricted. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And are you an AEW insider? Get early access to ticket pre-sales, special merchandise offers, and more straight to your inbox. Sign up today at AEWTix.com. And don't forget AEW Dynamite on TBS Wednesdays at 8 p.m. and streaming on Max. And AEW Collision live every Saturday on TNT and also streaming on Max. ROH streams every Thursday on Honor Club. Otherwise, folks, I'm Will Washington. She's Aubrey Edwards. For our guest, Viva Van. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Bye.